I'd like to introduce our last introducer, Eric Benhamou, who is CEO and founder of Benhamou Global Ventures. Eric, as I mentioned before, is a 2003 Visionary honoree himself. He currently serves as chairman of the board of Cypress Semiconductor and as a member of the board of directors of Real Networks as well as of Silicon Valley Bank Shares. He is an adjunct professor at INSEAD and a visiting professor at IDC Herzliyah's Horizon School of Business and at Ben Gurion University. He served as chairman of the board of Palm from 1997 to 2007 and CEO from 2001 to 2003. Eric also served as CEO of 3Com from 1990 until 2000, and then later as chairman of the board until its sale to HP in April 2010. In 1981, he co-founded Bridge Communications, an early networking pioneer. He has a Master of Science from Stanford University's School of Engineering and a Diplôme d'ingénieur and a doctorate from Arts et Métiers, École Nationale Supérieure. So, Eric.
Thank you, Susan. Good evening. It's great to be back at this rebranded forum and have an opportunity to introduce to you T.J. Rodgers. T.J. is someone whose name you've undoubtedly heard of if you've spent any time in the Valley or in this industry. Many people know of T.J., very few people actually know him. And perhaps what you've heard about is that he is an extremely tough boss to work for. He's a disciplinarian. He is a very strong debater. He's argumentative. He's passionate. And he's extremely competitive. And I'm using polite language. I'm not using the colorful language that sometimes these phrases come with. And truth be told, before I met TJ, I was certainly perceiving him very much in the same light. In 1993, he invited me to join his board, and I've had a chance to work with him very closely, both inside the Cypress boardroom and outside, and got a chance to really appreciate the complex aspects of his personality, which make him an eminent recipient of this SVForum Visionary Award. And I'm not going to paraphrase his resume. It takes multiple pages. Just the patent list alone covers more than one page. I'll just highlight three things which I think stand out. The first is that he is a passionate technologist and technology innovator, much in the same tradition as Gordon Moore, Robert Noyce, Andy Grove, and all the other founders of the semiconductor industry. In fact, he's one of a handful of CEOs that I know who, throughout their tenure as a CEO, ever since founding Cypress, he's continued to be involved in technology innovation. All kinds of innovations signed T.J. Rodgers in the SRAM product line that has made Cypress the leader in the world. He's the one that inspired us to move into solar cells back in 2000 and managed to convince me it was a bright idea. And this is why SunPower today is one of the most successful solar company in the world. He's the one that moved the company towards personal system-on-chip solutions, which power much of the screens that you touch every day as you come into contact with your smartphones and tablets. He's the one that who authored many technology innovations throughout the processes that Cypress use day in, day out in its assembly plants, assembly and test plants in particular. So above all, he's a technologist who probably takes half a dozen PhD thesis papers every Saturday morning to read and keep current. Secondly, he's authored an entrepreneurial philosophy that has persisted through the ages. This is why Cypress is a driven company that competes, that has high integrity in everything it does. It has spawned many, many young companies. In fact, as recently as last week, a set of entrepreneurs coming from Israel came to present to me. And they came to me, they were a spin-off of SanDisk, and NMI prior to that. And when they found out I was affiliated with Cypress, they proudly showed me the book No Excuse Management. And they said, we give a copy of this book to everyone in our company. And so this philosophy has transpired way beyond Cypress. And to me, this is a mark of a visionary. And finally, the third attribute I'd like to mention is that TJ has insatiable curiosity across a broad intellectual range of topics that go way beyond semiconductors, that touch financial derivatives, intellectual property laws, governance, Italian cooking, and the fine chemistry of Pinot Noir winemaking. So this, in 3 minutes or so, is why, in my view, TJ is an eminent recipient of this award. TJ Rodgers.
Well, I haven't had that much nice stuff said about me in a long time. I'm actually having a mild toxic reaction, and I'll lean on the podium here while I'm talking. The good news is I'm the last speaker, and that means you're down to your last 40 minutes. Reality, they threatened me. Can you hold up the cards, please? 1 minute, and you hold up the card after that. See, this is the little donut. Okay, so I am completely intimidated. Thank you very much. So I actually did a 5-minute talk. Of course, I want to thank you very much for the award, and it is humbling. I was more humbled as I came in, and I listened to the three before me, and then as I looked at the prior recipients, and I was trying to think, why would they give this to me? And I'm thinking, I'm 63 years old, and maybe there's a certain time in your life when you get old enough that if you just hang in there, you start getting awards, right? And an award for sticking around. And I actually thought about this morning. I do read papers every morning, that's true. What he didn't tell you is that I read them in my hot tub. My hot tub looks over my Pinot Noir vineyard, which we're serving tonight. And I have a floating desk. It's styrofoam with stainless steel and a birch top on it. And during the winter I have to use light emitting diodes in order to see, because I get up at 6 o'clock, and that's my quiet time when my head's clear and I can learn. But the award for sticking around, what does that mean? And then I thought, maybe that's okay. Maybe that's not an insult after all. For example, when Cypress was started in 1982, I had already been in Silicon Valley since 1970. I came here to get my PhD at Stanford. And I tried to start a company in 1979, which didn't get funded. And since we're in the habit here of naming firms that didn't fund people, I'll name Hambrecht and Quist. And I don't hold a grudge, but I have named them at every opportunity for the last 30 years. So we started, I worked at the University of Advanced Micro Devices under Jerry Sanders, a great entrepreneur. And we started Cypress, it was founded in December 1st, 1982. I was the CEO. That makes me, 2 years ago on the New York Exchange, in order to prove that saving money was good, I actually moved from New York Stock Exchange back to NASDAQ to save 300 grand a year. Therefore, I had the moral high ground within the corporation to beat on everybody else that was spending money. But back when we were on the New York Stock Exchange, I was about 26 years in. I'm 28 and a half years in now as CEO, and I was the longest tenured CEO. So I kind of get the award for hanging around, and I'm figuring out, is that worthy of getting an award? Well, I went and looked today. When we started Cypress, there were 59 American semiconductor companies, and we were the semiconductor industry. And I went through that list, and there are only 17 of them alive today. So one thing about hanging around is it's pretty hard to hang around in our business. There's only 30% of the companies left. And I thought about what the world was like when we started Cypress. There were 6 of us, and it was amazing. There was no personal computer. The IBM PC had just come out. I had to learn how to run a computer to do our business plan. There was no spreadsheet. There was this company called Lotus, and LJ7 of 7 Rosen lent me a beta site copy of Lotus, which was so buggy it trashed my plan about every other day, and I had to restart it. And I did our business plan in Lotus 123. There was no internet. I didn't email it to anybody. When we went to our site in San Jose, it was a wonderful site. There were orchards around it, literally. And as a matter of fact, Cypress was a tree, was almost pear tree semiconductor, because Apple, you know, they were famous. They were a couple years ahead of us, Apple, pear. And we, 1 minute, it ain't gonna happen, sorry. And we almost bought a pear orchard, but I came in one day and literally they ripped it up. No Cisco. I used to run where Cisco headquarters is right now in the field. Our first big customer is Digital Equipment Corporation, but they got bought by Compaq. Another big customer of ours was Compaq, but they got bought by HP. Fortunately today, HP is one of our top 5 customers. And transistors were 1.8 microns in size, 50 times bigger in lineal dimension, and 2,500 times bigger in area than they are today. So those changes are why semiconductor companies go away and 2/3 of them are dead. Think about Polaroid. Think about instant photography, and the electronics comes along and they can't make the change. They figure if they make the film a little faster, whatever, it's going to work. We started out as a static random access memory company. Memories were good. They helped develop technology. We were number 20 out of 20. We've hung in there. We're now number 1 in the world in static random access memories, high performance memories near computers. That's the good news. The bad news is in 2000, the static memory industry was $6 billion, so to be number 1 in that mattered. Today it's $1 billion. So we managed to gain share in a market that went down. So in 2001, when we were licking our wounds and the static RAM market was in the tank and Samsung was beating on prices, we finally passed them last year. We said, you know, we've got to do something different. We are silicon men. And if you think about the world, there was the Stone Age man, there's the Bronze man, there's the Iron Man, right? The Iron Age. And, you know, after the ash, you know, is 100 feet above where we stand right now, 2 millennia from now, from the great earthquake and volcanoes that followed, thank you very much, that little sign means 5 more minutes, right? And after we get covered, they're going to dig, and they're going to discover Silicon Man, and the anthropologists will talk about who we were. And they're going to say, well, they had kings. But we decided to get out, and we did 2 things. One is we said, we're Silicon Men, what can we do? How can we change? What can we do with our capability of being silicon people? And we said we can make solar cells. And that was the SunPower story. We spun them out. They were different enough from us after 5 years that we realized they needed to go their own way. But that company will do over $2.5 billion this year. Another thing we said is we can make things out of silicon that are programmable. And we can make programmable systems on chip. I won't talk about that. It's complicated and esoteric, but guess what? It sent me back to my textbooks. Because I was a memory guy. I worked on processing and lithography, and all of a sudden I had to work on architecture. I took it at Stanford, but it was something you kind of had to take to get your PhD and get on out in Silicon Valley, and I had to go back and read those books. So, boiling down to why being a survivor matters is vision, quote unquote, what we're here for, really boils down to learning. And learning boils down to passion. Passion for learning and understanding. And that really is what, to me, creates vision. Just an example, we talked about Pinot Noir a little bit. I got into wine chemistry big time. And I started trying to understand it. It's very complicated, very esoteric. I really like it. And, you know, I started, eugenol is an alcohol that smells like cloves. It's in that wine. 1,2,3 propane triol is an alcohol with 3 OH groups on it. It gives the body to that wine, etc. Valita and I even went to Davis and we had a tasting seminar on exotic compounds, 13 carbons long, called norisoprenoids, and they are the exotic flower-like bouquets in the best wines, and they're very difficult to grow. And we tasted them. They're so concentrated, you can smell and taste them at 1 nanogram per liter. 1 nanogram per liter, meaning 10 drops in the Hetch Hetchy Reservoir would make the San Francisco water supply taste like raspberries forever. So I have a passion for that too. So I guess being old and still alive is okay with me because it comes from learning and a passion for learning, and that's what Cypress Semiconductor, my child, I have no children, is about. Thank you very much.